And we're here on the Velvet Vibez Podcast with a magical young being walking upon the earth. You may be looking, if you're watching on YouTube, at a gentleman you've seen before. If you're listening on any of the streaming services, you may be about to hear a voice you may have heard before, but can't nobody tell you, like the good old Darren Carter. Talk to him.
Oh, thank you, man. That is a velvet vibe. I like that.
Yeah.
That's nice. It's that's nice. It's I'm gonna have to imitate you just for a little bit. I like that whole vibe. Hi everybody. I'm Darren Carter, the party starter, and I'm here to start this party. Come on down. Put your meat in the seat and let's rock the. I heard a guy. I
Oh
heard
my.
yeah, I was in Cleveland, I think, and the DJ he said that expression. He goes, "Come on out, have a great time. You're gonna laugh your butt off watching Darren Carter." And he goes, "Put your meat in the seat." And I said, "Wow, I have to remember that one. That was
I'm sure your eyes expanded when you heard that.
yeah, yeah. I love it. I was like, okay, I gotta remember that one. I like those little rhymes that people do. Like I used to go to Bob's Big Boy in Burbank. And I
Mm.
remember the waiter there had a really smooth type of vibe, and he the way that he would upsell, he goes, "Would you like to pimp that burger?"
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah. And he goes, "Well, my friend, for an extra dollar, you can have some bacon." What? He goes, "Don't cheat yourself, treat yourself."
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
love
when
that phrase.
the first time I heard that, I was like, wow. There's those little things you hear the first time. You're like, I gotta remember that one. That's a good one. Don't cheat yourself, treat yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Sit your hind on that pine. No, but
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Put your hind on that pine.
there you go.
That sounds a little better than put your meat in the seat. It's a little.
Yeah, that one's a little sketchy, but sometimes you need sketchy. Sometimes that'll lead you down the right path. What you
Yeah.
sipping on there? Seems like you got something
You know
lovely.
what? This evening I just have a piping hot coffee. I'm just gonna go with the coffee. I want to make sure that I keep my energy up, and I love a nice coffee. I don't know what it is. It's like you should have a beverage. I'm like, let's go with coffee tonight.
Even at this hour, huh? Well, you're gonna be turning
Yeah,
backflips.
yeah. I know it's I'm in California time, so it's about 8:40, and yeah, I think we'll be okay as long as there's been times in the past where I would even drink coffee as late as 11, and
Yes.
I'd still have the energy. But yeah, right now I swear I can drink this and I'll be asleep by midnight, hopefully.
Well, guys, if he starts twerking on this podcast, we'll have to end early. Um,
And I'll be like,
yeah, no, but we'll go ahead and start right from the beginning. We want to ask the tender questions first before we get to the spicy questions.
please
First
do.
off, let us know what we always want to know. How in the fuck did you get into comedy in the first place? What led you down this path?
I was one of those kids that I used to make my friends laugh, and I'd make the kids laugh in school. And not that I was the class clown, because there definitely was the kids that would like say something real funny in front of everybody. But I would kind
Mhm.
of say it to a couple of my friends, and then they would repeat it, and and I knew I was onto something. Now you got to remember, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and back then, hip hop was getting started and it was becoming popular, and I just really gravitated toward it. I mean, as soon as I heard like Grandmaster Flash, and I heard like the Sugar Hill Gang, and I heard all that stuff, I was like, wow, like especially back then, like the rhymes were pretty easy to follow along, and
Oh
they would
yes.
tell stories, and it was funny, and you would hear like Run DMC do like funny like they used to like raps or whatever, hip hop, and so I would write my own. So I remember that it was 1986, I kind of
Mhm.
started learning how to beatbox, and I'd be in school, and I'd be like, and I grew up in Fresno, Central California, right?
Oh, yeah.
Adjacent between San Francisco and Los Angeles. It's right in the Central Valley. And so
Yeah.
back then, especially back then, you didn't really see, especially back then, I had my hair. So I had bright orange hair, really pale skin.
Yeah.
And and people were like, I heard the white boy can rap. I heard the white boy can rap. And like, oh, let me hear you rap. And so I would tell like these little silly raps. At the time, they were good because it was in the 80s. And and that was the first time I learned how to kind of command performance and get people to be in a circle around me and hold their attention. and get reaction. And I went from that to I joined like this. There was like they called it forensics, like the speech and debate team or whatever. And I would write these little comical 10-minute speeches. And somebody told me that their uncle owned a nightclub. I should try comedy, but I waited till after high school and I just got the bug. And I was like, wow, I can actually write down my thoughts, express them, and get reaction. And
you were eventually it for a minute.
Yeah. It was great. It was a great time. I mean, now people can do using, podcasting, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Back then we didn't have that. So you had to like, talent shows or whatever, and get in front of a group of people. And
facts.
And that's how I got into it,
And once, fast forward, once you were actually into it and you were doing shows, have you ever had that day when you told the joke and you looked out there and the crickets began to speak to you?
Yeah, it's especially in the early years. It happens a lot in the early years. No, as you become more seasoned, it can still happen, obviously, especially when you put yourself in some weird situations. Like let's say a group of engineers want to hire you to perform at their gathering, or you know what I mean. You're not at a comedy club. You're not. They didn't come necessarily to see you. They're like, oh, we're gonna have a big conference, and then we'll have a comedian do some time, but we're all this one group, whatever that is. I mean, I say engineers because I remember I played for a group of engineers. It was a little bit harder than normal,
Yeah.
But you definitely get the crickets, and then
it probably was a lot like really literal, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
It was technically you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first thing that happened was they handed me a wireless microphone, and then the battery were dead. The batteries were dead, so they had to like swap out and put new batteries in the mic. So, right away you're like, please welcome Darren Carter. And then I go out there and it's like, it's like, and they put the new batteries in. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, you was set up right there. Now, did you bounce back on this one, or this one was a complete bomb?
You know what? That one was I bounced back because you know what I did? I learned there's nothing. You just learn by so many. It's almost like a Rocky movie. It's not how hard you can punch, it's how hard you can get punched and keep getting up. You get knocked down, getting up, you move forward, all right? So yeah, here's a tip I learned. If there's any entertainers out there and this happens to you, I literally reset the show when they got the mic and I reintroduced myself. I hid behind the little curtain. I go, I'll be right back. Act like this didn't happen. And I go behind the curtain. I go, please, ladies and gentlemen, for his second appearance, the encore. I made fun of it or whatever. Please welcome Darren Carter. And I go out like a second time. Hey, it's great to be back here.
You made fun of your own self. I see what you got.
Yeah, make fun of your own self. Reintroduce yourself. Come on, put your hands together. You guys can do better than that. Please welcome.
Now that makes sense. I've heard that from a few comedians. Once you're able to crack on yourself, then the ball will keep rolling. Now, I see you got the Rocky impersonation real good, and I've heard you do Snoop and a few others. This kind of leads me to this question because I've heard, I always thought impressions was pretty cool, but I heard a few comedians say that it can be kind of it's kind of a crutch sometimes. Do you think it's a pro or a con? Because I have heard it this way, that sometimes when people know you can do it, it's kind of like all they expect. They're just like, hey, do Snoop. And you're like, well, I have some cool other jokes.
Yeah. It can save your butt, like in certain times. I remember back in the day, I would do Bill Clinton, and it would, I remember I remember getting a standing ovation, and it was awesome. It was the best feeling ever. Did a great set. Crowd loves you. You're doing your thing. And then I would, and this is we're going back like 15 years or whatever. And I would I'd say, I go, remember those guys that would graduate and then they would cruise around the high school at lunchtime, even after they were out of high school. Yeah. I go, that's gonna be Bill Clinton. And I would do like, I hit the beatbox. I'd be like, yeah. And I act like Bill Clinton's rolling up. I'd be like, sup, I'm back, biatch. And I go, White House. And then I'd say these different lines. And one of the big lines, I'd be like, big ups to my boo Hillary. That's my baby's mama. Hillary's got my back. and Monica's got my front. And at that time, it was just like, oh my gosh, wow. And, you know, I'd really get in the impression and yeah, so here's the thing, you're right. Like it would help me, but then, you know, you kind of like hang on. I remember hanging on to that impression a little too long, like well past its due date. And I just kept, you know, I was like, it's, you know, and so, yeah, that's the thing. And that was just one impression. You know, you don't want to be the guy that's like, I remember one time I did radio. I was in
Oh my God.
Kansas City, and they were like, "Who do you do?" And there, because I don't really do impressions. Like you're right, I do Snoop Dogg, and sometimes in the course of a conversation, I might like imitate somebody. But they were like, "Hey, do you do?" And so they had me doing like, you know, Michael Jackson and you know anybody I could. But they were like all, and sadly, they were all people that had passed away, and I was like, wow, I'm glad I don't do really impressions. Like that's not my main thing, because that can be a problem if the person, you know, because your impression, it works when the person's popular, but then when they're no longer popular, you don't want to be the guy that's doing all these old ass impressions, you know. Like speaking of I'm gonna tell you this quick story. There's I forget his name, but I'm reading this book about the history of stand-up comedy, and in the book they were talking about this guy who used to sell so many records. He used to imitate JFK, John, you know, Kennedy, and they said he looked like him. He was already from like Massachusetts, so he pretty much sounded like him. And they make these comedy albums, and it would just sell. I mean, they said it got to the point where like they were so popular, but you know, sadly, the night that JFK got killed, that pretty much killed this guy's career, because it was too painful and weird for people to see him do those imitations, you know. So that,
do you think there's a tactful way to do that? Like if someone passed away and you're capable of doing an impression of them, is it best to just leave it alone altogether, or do you think there's a tactful way to go about it?
I think there's a tactful way. I think anything can be done if you figure it out. Like, you know, I know there's guys that love DMX and they can really do a great DMX impersonation, and I'm sure hopefully they'll do it with class and be like, I miss DMX, he was a real rapper and he would say things, and then they would almost probably do the impression in audience. If they do it the right way, audiences will clap almost like DMX in the building, you know, because he left such a great impact on so many people. So that's what I think. But and there's also, you just don't want to, I don't know, like, I don't know. I've seen guys in Vegas that just do, you know, Muhammad Ali, Howard Cosell, Jimmy Carter, like all these guys that, you know, they're doing all impressions that were from 1977, and you don't want to, you know.
They haven't heard a voice since then, apparently.
No, I literally opened for a guy once, like when I was starting out, and he'd be like, this is my impression of Howard Cosell and calling Muhammad Ali's answering machine. And it was like, you know, I was like, dude, well, I wouldn't even say I was starting out. It was the first time I did Vegas. So it was like, at that point, people didn't really have answering machines anymore, and it just looked pretty whack.
So it made the joke very dated.
Super dated. Yeah. You don't want to be super dated, you know. That's something I'm going to be aware of.
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm not the joke connoisseur guy, but I would imagine, you know, if you start cracking jokes about your beeper and things of that nature, with today, it's just gonna kind of
right. Yeah, like if you did it as a joke, but if you honestly didn't really acknowledge, you know, I remember there was people. I remember at comics, even as late as like 2005, they would be on stage and they'd be like, come on, folks, this is the 90s. And it's like, dude, it's not the 90s. It's like,
oh my.
They were just, yeah.
They probably was still using old material, and they use the same little inserts all the way down to the T.
Yeah. It's almost like a memorized speech at that point, and they forgot, you know.
With this, how we're saying about the impressions and stuff, and you know, I have seen people that did what you said, like they kind of went down a path that was probably not the best path. We know where comedy is now. Do you feel like you approach comedy with fear? As far as, I'm sure you have jokes in your mind that you probably like, oh, I can't say that. It's funny, but you're probably like, oh, I can't say that. Oh, well, I can't say this. Do you feel like you're limited as far as the things you would like to say versus the things you do say?
I think that I do notice this. When you're on stage, that's where I'll say stuff, because it's like your answer is right there in front of you. If it's funny, that you'll get that reaction. Having said that, I'm more of a safe comedian. Like it's just who I am. I've never really been like, trying to go for those targets. I'm like pretty safe, but I do notice this, like I do sometimes rethink things if I'm going to put it out there in print. Like if I'm going to tweet something, I'm like, like I've had those backfire a little bit because they read things in the mood that they're in, or, like if they're thinking about something and, then, they're scrolling or you pop up, maybe they're not even a fan. Maybe you did a hashtag and they just click on it and it's like, you know what I mean? Like
and I've done just ran across you. Yeah.
Yeah. I've done certain jokes and I would be like hashtag stand up, but I meant like stand up comedy. And they might mean like, this is our issue, stand up. And then it's like, who's this guy? What the hell? You sexist or something, like, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think I had like I like my women type joke, like because I used to do a lot. I still do those. It's fun to do with the crowd. I'd be like, I do this. It's silly. It's really silly and harmless. But I'm like, I go, that's right, ladies. I'm Darren. You could call me Darren. And then I would say a couple things. Like I would just, and then the crowd would yell it out, right? It'd be kind of funny. Like, I like my women like I like my, and if it's like Thanksgiving, they'll be like, I already know they're going to be like, turkey or something. And I'll be like, gobble, gobble, and stuffed, making me unzip my pants, or just whatever. Like if it's Halloween, I'll be like on my front porch and smashed, silly stuff like that. Right. So I remember like, something was in the news. And like I think marijuana had just got legalized in like Chicago or something. And so I down there and like, oh hey, I'll write a funny little joke. And it worked in a room like a live comedy venue, but not when people are reading the news and there's so they're the thing was about marijuana. So I said like I wrote, I like my women like I like my marijuana legal. It's funny in the real world, but like in print, people are like, like that's gross. What are you saying? You like legal? What do you? And I was just like, so I deleted it, man. I was like, I deleted it.
I could see.
I'm trying to get laughs here, not upsetting people.
Do you feel like I know you said you've always been safe. Do you feel like you're just as safe as you've always been, or do you feel like it's kind of like extra now? Are you like, damn, I wish I could say this, or it's kind of just the same for you anyway?
I think it's kind of the same, but I also think that as I've gotten older, my materials changed a little bit because I'm married now, so there's jokes about being married that come up, and stuff that my son does that come up, and like I said, but when I'm in a live room in a live scenario, like I'll say stuff because I know it's gonna probably get a laugh most likely, and and then listen, I got my go-to, like if I say something new it doesn't get a laugh, then guess what? I'm gonna start beatboxing. Just like distract them,
Never that's mind. Your safe place, huh?
Yeah. Let's start that party. Exactly.
No, that kind of leads into what I was gonna ask. Do you feel like and you kind of answered that anyway, but the way that your comedy is written, do you go to the stage like, I'm going to say this joke and then I'm going to say this joke and then I'm going to say this joke? Or are you capable of telling a joke? Just say you tell 2 or 3 jokes and then you say, ooh, I'm going to go and get these other jokes. Like, do you just have jokes all over the place for you to grab at? Okay, I'm going to have to switch it up.
Yeah, exactly. Like what you just did. That's how I kind of know, like they're up there. I picture them above my head. Like, okay, I know I'm pretty much going to riff around, say something in the room, things, the situation, and then I know I'm gonna pretty much do this particular thing, and then I'm gonna play around, and then I know I'm gonna go into this particular bit, and then that leads me to the thing about this, and then this, and so that's one thing about taking this break, or I would do like shows like, every 2.5 months, and then maybe I'll do a bunch of shows and then nothing again for 2 months. It's like, it's been kind of weird because you get on a roll where you're like, oh yeah, that joke, and then you just stop. Especially like in the summer, last summer, I was like, dang, like I really, the transition part was the hard part. Like, how do I get from that? And I don't remember, and that was a little bit strange, but it, it comes back. It's like riding a bike, it really is.
That makes sense. That makes sense. It's just cool to hear how your line of thinking, because especially from anyone that's not a comedian, you think you have joke number one, joke number two, joke number three,
That
and
is
if you don't
something
have other jokes.
No, you're right though. Like, but that is how it is in the beginning. Like into the first year, especially the first year, first 2 years, I'd have a set list and be like, what you just said. I'm going to open up. I'm going to do the thing about oscillating fan. Then I'm going to do the thing about winning the contest. Then I'm going to talk about. It'd be just like that. And then eventually, it's kind of just in my brain, unless sometimes I will put the notes down of like, oh, I really want to get to these ideas, these jokes. These are the things I want to get to, and so I'll write those down and put those out there, because sometimes it's hard to do it naturally, because all of us, you have your rhythm, and then
Yeah.
go ahead.
What do you feel? And you let me hear. What do you feel? What type of crowd is the harder crowd? Because comedy is comedy, and different people like different things. And I'm sure, of course, this. You can walk out and you can look at the crowd and say, "Okay, I'm gonna go here." Do you feel like one crowd is harder than the other, or is it just you just have to pretty much read the room?
I think that I try not to read the room until I'm like pretty much up there, or because, especially, that's one thing I've learned with these, because I've done some shows over Zoom, and man, you're like seeing the people on your computer. They're like right there, and you can, especially if I do it on a phone, I'm swiping and I'm seeing 4 people at a time, and I'm like, damn, none of these people look like they'd laugh at me. You know what I mean? Like, you're one-on-one, like that guy looks like he's too cool. Oh, that lady looks mad. That guy looks like he's doesn't have a sense of humor. And then I might be like, oh, these 2 ladies, they might laugh at me. And then this, but and you realize, like, as a group though, it's like, man, it's just like, so I don't really, that's, yeah, now you just kind of, I just don't even really think about that. Because I used to freak out about that. Like when the show's starting, I used to hide behind the curtain and see the people coming in. Like, oh man, this was like a tough crowd.
Yeah. I kind of feel like on Zoom, it could
Yeah.
also it could also. It's not that your jokes are not hitting, but it may be that they're more distracted, because I know at the shows there's more rules and don't bring your phone and stuff like that.
Right.
And if they're on Zoom, they're probably like, they might be playing PlayStation and making a sandwich. And so you may tell an amazing joke, but they're like, oh, I've got to finish this sandwich. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, that totally happens. And then like the delay sometimes, and then, maybe it cuts out on a punchline. Like last time I was doing this really funny bit about getting lost in a pumpkin patch, and I have a lot of puns and a lot of quick jokes, and there was because there was a couple that got, I don't know if you ever been to one of those Halloween like corn mazes or whatever,
Yeah.
and there was a couple that called 911, and I guess like the employees had gone home, the thing was shut down, and so I wrote a bit about it, and I played a character where I'm like, hello, we're at Mr. Pickle's pumpkin patch. Yeah, we're at a corn maze. It's not amazing. We're cornered. I'm with my boyfriend Cornelius, and I'm doing all these corn jokes, like these puns. We're so confused, and and it was like, I think at that moment, like somebody's other phone started ringing, and they didn't hit mute, so they were like, yeah, we're watching a comedy show, and
wow,
it was just like, it was really a weird moment for me.
Did you call them out, or did you just keep it rolling? Or
I kept it rolling because I didn't know what was happening until it was over with, and they were like, oh, sorry, that was Tammy, she was on her phone, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't, because I didn't really know. Like, okay.
Oh my gosh, jeez.
They're like, do you want to start over? I'm like, no, it's too late. Especially that joke, because it's kind of silly, and no pun intended, it is corny. So it's like, if we started, it's already kind of groaning. It's already easy to start groaning at it. So it's like, no, we'll just move on.
Yeah, just keep it going. Now, fast forwarding through comedy, we know that you've dibbled and dabbled in other things, acting, and etc. What do you feel was your highlight in your entire career thus far?
Wow, it's interesting to say. I used to have my I had two answers, and I feel like it's changing. My first one was well, I had like three answers. The first thing that really helped me, I was at the Comedy Store. I was became a paid regular, and that helped me get into like a movie, and it helped me get my Screen Actors Guild card. And from there, I got spotted by a producer, and the producer, um, in my act at that time, I talked about growing up in Fresno in a Latino neighborhood and how I had the bright red hair, and the kids would call me Rooster, and I'd act it out, and I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Rooster? Do my homework, Rooster." Backpack, and I'm walking looking like a rooster, and and all these great jokes about that, and the guy, it was for this thing called the Latino Laugh Festival, and it was on Showtime, and he goes, "I'd love you to come out and do your, we have a thing called Diamonds in the Rough. You'll be one of the up and coming comedians, and you'll be on Showtime." And so that was a huge break, because from there I got a manager and an agent, more opportunities. That was a really big break.
Yeah.
Another great break I got, and I didn't realize it was a break at the time because it was non-union, but I got to be on which means I think like $300 or whatever, but I got to be on BET, right? Comic View on BET. And that was great because they would play it a lot. They if you performed on there and you did well, they might air you 3 times a week, and then I got to go back another year, and then I'd take a year off and go back another year. And so what would happen is, over the course of time, they would splice it up and be like, this will be a best of, or this is the white guy section, or guys who do impressions, or somebody would be talking about Bill Clinton, and then they'd show me, and I'd be like, sup, I'm back to watch, be like, but it was great because then I'd get that recognition, and and I'd go on the road and sell more tickets, and actually it was the closest I felt like to because other shows that I would do, they would just air it once, maybe twice, but Comic View, man, BET, that like they would air it so much that you could totally get recognized. I get bumped up on flights sometimes by flight attendants who I made laugh. Hey, there's you want to be in first class. I mean, everything from that to one time I was at the Ventura County Fair, and the ride operator on the bumper cars was like, he lost his mind recognizing me, and he goes, "Man, you're so funny." He goes, "You know what? Keep your tickets. This one's on me." And I was like, "Thank you." Like, bumper car, yes. Like, it's not a first class flight to New York or Paris, but I'll take it.
Exactly.
Then I got to do the Tonight Show. That was great. Doing the Tonight Show, that really helped, because the Tonight Show is one of those shows, like, everybody's heard of it. Maybe they watch it, maybe they don't, but still, it's been on television for 45, who knows how long, 50 years. Like, so it's one of those shows where it's like, especially back in the day, like in this, it used to be a really big thing where guys would go on there one time, and then they'd be, like Drew Carey or whoever, they'd be like, boom, you're in the show business now.
You made it.
And I think the next break that really, and this sounds weird, but I realized this, the next break is one that I gave myself, and that is learning, not saying no, not resisting technology, not resisting how to do a podcast, how to upload stuff to YouTube, how to edit, to have the structure and the what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I'm looking at I got these yellow legal pads of my ideas and things I'm working on. Like, in other words, I didn't want to like just sit back and be like, well, you know what, I'll just do shows and wait for my next big break. I was like, no, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and give myself that next big break,
Right,
so
that puppy.
I exactly right. By the way, I'm going to ask you before we move on, how many episodes are you at on Velvet Vibez Podcast?
I think I am at 135 now.
That's awesome.
Guys, forgive me, I'm not around my phone. That may not be true, but I'm over 100. I think I'm like 135. Like, forgive me if I failed you.
No, that's incredible. No, I know people ask me that too, and I'm like, I don't know exactly. I kind of know the number, but I mean, but just the fact that you have that many episodes, I mean, that's you know the power of consistency,
Yes.
discipline, putting it out regularly, and
I try to make it clear that this is not a COVID podcast. Shout out
right.
to y'all if y'all just started. I still respect that, but we've been
Yeah.
around. We've been around.
Yeah. It's like a lot of times people will, I've had a lot of friends that they'll do a podcast and it'll last like maybe 12 episodes and then they just quit. I'm like,
Yeah.
you gotta keep going, man. Even when you feel like no one's, you're not getting that reaction you want, just keep it moving,
I think
and
it's
people,
easier to
yeah,
quit anything that you technically don't have to do, because when
yeah,
you're doing a podcast, you're like, oh, I don't feel like it today. I want to catch up on my Netflix show. So it's easier to get distracted, and I got to plug all this stuff up, but I'm like, nope, we're going to do it. And next week we're going to do it. And the following week we're going to do it. And if I got a headache or if I'm hungry or so what, we'll make
yeah,
it.
yeah. Do you know? Let me ask you a couple questions before we move on. Do you remember your different little victories that you had with your podcast? Because we can go back and forth on this because I
Oh yeah.
have some what you name one of your victories that you've had.
My first victory, which was I guess the more simple victory before I get to the bigger one, is because when I first started, of course, as anybody, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, so I was just throwing them on YouTube. So once I finally got on Spotify and iHeartRadio and all that stuff, and I was like, oh, I think we're doing something. And I start putting soundproof in my room, and as you see, like actually hooking it up and making it a studio and not just dudes in the kitchen. But
Guilty.
yeah. But eventually I got my first celebrity interview, which was Omar Gooding.
Oh,
Cuba
nice.
Gooding's brother. So once I got that, and then I started kind of reaching out to more people, and I was like, okay, I know I can't just say, hello, greetings, Drake, I would like to have you on the show. But I was like, you know what? I think there are some people that are still willing to move around and make rounds. And, that started working for me. And I'm like, okay, I think we're cooking with grease now. But that's when I started raising the roof, as you would say.
Yeah, well, you're reaching out. And did you do that with Omar? Did you do that over Zoom?
That was before I was doing Zoom. I
Mm.
wish I would have. It was just a recorded audio interview. But
Oh, interview.
yeah, once the COVID started, first I was doing it for safety kind of thing. Like some people, I used to have people come over and stuff. Then I was like, I don't want all these people here. But now
Right.
COVID's not over, but now that it's kind of lightening up, I'm still kind of like, you know what? I think this is just easier anyway. So it's not only because of
Yeah.
COVID. It's just easier. It's just like, hey, you stay at your house. We'll pull it up and boom, we'll do it. It gives us the recording and we're all set.
What part of the country are you in?
I'm in Texas, San Antonio.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I played there. I played at the LOL Comedy
Mm-hmm.
Club by the mall, and I played at the one at the other mall, the River Center.
Yep.
And
That's what hipped me to you and reminded me. I was like, oh, I remember this guy.
And by the way, one of my big breaks, that thing I was saying about the Showtime's Latino Laugh Festival, that's where it was at. It was in San Antonio.
Oh wow.
It was great. It was in San Antonio. Yeah, man. I love San Antonio.
Indeed,
But
indeed.
yeah,
There we go.
those little victories, that's what we need. And I found there to be a lot of little victories when you first start, because you get excited when you're like, I got excited when I was like, oh wow, I actually know how to like not like edit. Like I used to be like 10 years ago, I would record something and I would be like, well, I just gotta put the whole thing up because I don't know how to you know what I mean? Like,
Chop it up and remove things. And
yeah, to
so you're
take
doing
out
all your stuff yourself, huh?
yes, yeah. And I actually prefer it that way, because that way I know, oh, let me chop off the first 8 seconds of dead air. Let me
Mm-hmm.
chop off the last 9 seconds of, what, you know what I mean? Little things like that.
No,
Maybe
I respect that.
yeah, all those little things where somebody, like maybe they'll mention someone's name, like my ex-girlfriend, they'll say their name. I'm like, oh, let me take that out.
Yeah,
Just little things like
definitely.
that.
Yeah.
I used to, yeah. I used to not know how to do that. And then you learn like, oh, and then another thing that had a little victory was my son. He's 13 now, but at the time he was 10, and he plays piano and bass, and he made like a little theme song for me. So he wrote a little theme song, recorded it with just his voice and his piano, and so I would put that on the podcast. in a
Nice.
couple episodes, I said, hey, if any musicians out there want to cover it, email it to me, and we'll play it on the podcast. And I got so lucky that right away I got two people to do it right away. One is a country musician. He did acoustic guitar, recorded on his iPhone, and his name is Curtis Marsh. He's out of Tennessee. And the
Salute.
second guy is a rapper out of the Netherlands, and
Oh
his name
wow.
is Dan Steady. Yeah, and he's like, and he made it sound really. He's like, all that. He's like everybody listened. I mean, it's really good. I was like, wow. And then I had
No, that's
another
cool.
guy, maybe like 5 episodes later. He his name is the Miguel Romero, and he gave me like a sexy version, and with the like a Prince type of version where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
pocket pot, where you have a bad day, a falsetto, and
Oh
because
yeah.
he brought a friend into the studio, the friend hit that really high notes, and
They
then they
took
did,
it there.
yeah, they took it there. It was like, but yeah, I had all this stuff, and I was like, this is great, like all those little,
Mm,
and then as you know, when you put it on YouTube, it's exciting because
definitely.
I had one guest that came on and they actually helped me get monetized because like 7,000 people like watched it. So it was like
Oh wow.
and they gave me so many hours of watch time on YouTube that because I had the 1,000 subscribers, but I didn't have the watch time because
Hmm.
it kept repeating every month or whatever.
Yeah,
So
they
that
got
was another.
that new way of doing it.
Yes. So shout out to Sam Tripoli
There you
because I
go.
was like, yes, and but yeah, that was another little victory, and but even the little ones, like you said, like the first time you reach out to a celebrity, or I remember
Hmm.
the first time I interviewed somebody that I never really that I didn't really know. Like I was a little nervous that too, right? Remember the first time you interviewed someone you didn't really know
Oh
and you
yeah.
just got
Yeah. I think I'll tell you a scary one of the scarier moments, and I don't know if you ever had somebody like this on your podcast. Uh, I like when I have just how we're running this. I'm talking, you're talking. When I have that guest, when I'm like, "Oh, tell me how you started," and I was one day I woke up and then I did it, and then I'm like, "Oh."
uh-oh.
So tell me about your greatest victory when I woke up this morning. And I'm like, oh
Oh
shit, we're gonna run out of questions because that guide is like super short, and I'm like, oh, I only have 10 to 15 questions. I thought you were gonna have something to say in
yeah.
between, but they're like, yes, no, yes, and you're like, oh, fuck,
I
damn
know, I'm always afraid of that. It's like
it.
I, I used to do a podcast like 10 years ago and I had a partner. So he was great because when you have a partner, sometimes it's good because maybe they could talk about things that you don't know. Like I have no clue on certain things,
Yeah.
like Star Wars or sports. Like so,
Mm.
when the guest is like, "I love Mandarin," or no, what's it called, the Mandalorian, and then
Oh, yeah.
the partner could be like, "Oh yeah, blah 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 blah," or if someone's like, "Hey,
And you're like,
but
you guys
exactly,
take it away.
take it away, exactly." But I've kind of found by doing these solo podcasts, like just one on one, that for the most part, even if the guest talks about other stuff, I'll just tell them I don't know much about it and just shut up and listen to them.
Oh yeah. Well, when you learn to listen, it works long as you don't make it awkward. Because when you don't insert anything, and I think the other person feels like, oh, I think I'm boring them, and then they stop talking. So you have to insert the yes, great, and just keep telling me because as soon as they think, oh, I don't think he's into it, then it just goes to that awkward. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I'm listening. Keep take me away. But
yeah, please keep going.
you brought up something that I definitely wanted to get into, how you said about uploading things to your YouTube. And the times I've talked to comedians that's been around and been in the game, there's different people that feel different ways about this. But do you feel it's easier for comedians today with the internet, or do you feel that it's harder to be? Because you can pop on the internet, you can do these little sketches and then viral, and then boom. But I've also heard that it could be harder today. What do you think?
You know what? I'm sorry. Can you say that last part? The thing cut out just a little bit about
Oh,
videos going viral.
yeah, you can get that video that goes viral and then boom, you can pop. But, some people still say, they think it's harder today than it was back in the day. How do you feel about that?
I think it's definitely it's different because, back in the day you were on, like, you would be in a movie, or, you'd be in a TV show or something. And so that was a little bit more staying power.
Hmm.
Then you got to go through so many gatekeepers to get to that level,
Yeah.
um, they nowadays you got some good ideas, you can just shoot it on your phone and just, off and running, um, and so in a way, I just remember back in the day, like, I'd be on the road or be touring somewhere, and like just literally not having anything to do until that night. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
in a bad way though, because I'd be like, dang man, like, I wish there was more I could do. Like, I don't have to 8 o'clock at night to try to make it and get out of this rut that I'm in. And
Yeah.
so now you're like, oh, I can do stuff. I can edit a video, put it on YouTube. I can write this next thing and get ready and practice my, get my pocket party podcast going. So,
No, that makes sense.
and it
I'll
can
tell.
also be a little frustrating because like, that's what I'm saying, like, about the resisting,
Mhm.
because I've seen some of my peers who, they were like, I was on SNL or I was on Mad TV. I don't want to do like sketches for my phone. Like, this is stupid. Like, and they're just, I get it though, because they
Yeah.
were, but yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to keep, reinventing yourself and just go with it. Otherwise, you know what? Like, in the history of stand-up comedy, I had a guest on my show, and he was on recently. He has a new book out, and his uh, his name is Wayne Fetterman. It's called The History of Stand-Up Comedy: Everything from Mark Twain to Dave Chappelle. And he
Okay.
talks about, he told me that in the 1960s, it was easier to press records, so they were putting a lot of comedy albums out, and
Mm.
comedians like, like Bill Cosby and Steve Martin and,
Mhm.
Bob Newhart, and maybe not Steve Martin on this particular thing, but he was basically, they would be in the charts, like the top five
Oh
would be
wow.
like comedians. So you'd have comedians right in there with the Beatles, right in there with Elvis, like Bruce Brown, and then a comedian. And a record producer realized, like, wow, you know what? All I gotta do is rent a bunch of chairs, put them in the recording studio, bring in a comedian, boom, that was easy. Like, I didn't have to pay a band or nothing. Like, that
Dang.
was
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but then there was comedians in Las Vegas at that time that were like, why would I sell my act for $1.99 when I'm making $18,000 a week? Like, I'm not doing a record album. So of
Yeah. Yeah.
course, right? Yeah. So they were short sighted. So you have to, I feel like, kind of go along with the times, and
Yeah.
not
I,
always be
I,
resistant. I
when
was,
you when you get stuck in a train of thinking, then you fall in that. But one thing I have heard that kind of makes sense of where it is harder today, it is easier as far as how much content you put out. But I've heard a point which makes a lot of sense is now, back then, not saying there wasn't a lot of comedians, but there was who there was, and now
yeah,
it's like for every skit you do or sketch you do, there's a million of you. There's a million of this
yeah.
podcast. There's a million rappers. There's a million singers. And it's just like, yeah, this guy's viral. This guy's on TikTok. And it's kind of like the competition, although it's easier to get
I
it out there,
know.
competition is way heavier.
I know. It's why it's like, that's why I think that they say that when you're your authentic self, you're going to stand out. Like, that's one of the reasons I was, the only thing I really resisted, because like I said, I'm pretty open to a lot of stuff, like,
Mhm.
podcasting and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing I was a little bit resistant was TikTok. I had my brother-in-law was like, get on TikTok. And I was like, no, like, I just didn't, I don't know. I'd see these little, I don't know. That was the one thing that I kind of resisted. I was like, I don't want to be there, because I kept seeing the trends that people would do, and
Yeah.
just prank shows or knock stuff off the shelf. Or
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to compete against that. I'm trying to write comedy here. Like,
I
you
think
know,
it's because of it's an age thing. With once you because I feel the same way, and people have told me, hey, you should do it, and I think I'm finally breaking. I've downloaded it, but I haven't started
yeah,
doing anything because I'm still feeling like I'm too old to do this. Because you go on there and you see a bunch of kids doing a TikTok dance or something, and you don't want to be that guy, and you're like, I'm going to be that guy doing that dance or sing
yeah,
or whatever. But I guess like you said, you got to bob and weave and maneuver with the
yeah.
times.
And then what if you do it and you like, and you're like, all right, I'll do it, and you twerk and all that stuff, and then you're like, oh, I got 4 views. All right, I knew I'd get. I
Yeah.
did this all for 3 views, so it's like, But I got to tell you though, I do have a friend. I did join TikTok, and I'll tell you what really got me into it is I have a friend. He was uploading his stand-up on TikTok,
Mhm.
but he would take the time to put the captions, so he would write the words that he's saying,
Mhm.
and he ended up having a video that got like 1 million views, and I was like, wow! And that guy hadn't had luck with anything. Honestly, he really
Mhm.
hadn't had much success on anything. Like,
Mhm.
and so I was like,
He's
wow.
gonna make a diss record against you because he's gonna take that part personal. So look
Exactly.
out for that
Yeah,
song that's coming against you. But go ahead.
exactly. But he said that he was inspired by this other comedian, and he's she was somebody that I think has like 2 million like followers on TikTok. So it's
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
and I talked to a TikTok uh, star or whatever they're called, and she told me that the reason that TikTok you truly can go viral on there
Yeah.
compared to like book or something where you have to kind of boost it and pay for it. She said that
Mhm.
people they could really find you
Yeah.
on
And
TikTok.
just yeah, because there's so many ways to search for people. You can just search for people who all dance to a song, a certain song and stuff, and it's just there. So there's a lot of different ways to search. There's hashtags and all that good jazz. So
But you know what though, it's funny. You know, I do have to remember like not to put myself in that box of like I'm a comedian, everything must be funny, because I sometimes don't want to do stuff that's funny. Like I want to do other stuff, and I tell myself it's okay to do that. Because every now and
yeah,
then my wife is okay. Remember, you're a comedian. People are going to your channel, but at the same time,
yeah,
like I'll be walking out like so during COVID, we've been spending more time up north, like
hmm,
away from LA, up in the Central Valley,
hmm.
and that's where we both grew up. And I'm having the time of my life. I'm on a farm. There's like birds and coyotes and rabbits, and
Oh, there
and
you go.
sometimes I'll be in the back, way in the back, away from everybody, and I'll just see like you know hawks flying, and I'll film it, and I've put a few of this on my Insta story and even on my YouTube channel. And I thought, I want to just have like make a sort of a peaceful meditational type video. Maybe I'll talk a little bit in the beginning,
Hmm.
very little, couple minutes,
Yeah.
and then just people see the sights and sounds of the country, which
Hmm.
it's not stand up, but it's like I kind of just want to do it just to see if it gets anything, like because
Yeah.
I'd rather do that than like TikTok dance. I mean, I'll probably do that too, but you know what I mean? Like,
You might get me inspired. I might have to go in there and follow you on TikTok, and I might see you doing some, something that might get me going.
exactly.
Maybe.
YouTube is more who I really am, I think. And TikTok, I still am like that, but I know TikTok, you got to keep it shorter, and you know,
I guess it's just rapid fire comedy. It's just like do something
yeah,
and you better make me laugh, and you got 10 seconds to do it. And it's like,
I
oh,
know. I don't
next.
think I've got it
Oh,
right. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I've been doing for the most part on TikTok. I'm basically just like over the years I've done funny stuff on
mm,
Instagram, the Insta stories.
mm.
So I'm just basically like
Re-uploading them.
re-uploading it, and I don't, and a couple of them have hit,
Yeah.
a couple of them have hit, and some of them they haven't really hit, but some of them haven't. And unfortunately, on some of them, I'm filming my friends because we're having a funny moment. So my friend, if you go to my TikTok, my friends are the ones that are like on camera. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I should have been the funny guy, but whatever. I directed it. Like,
So check this out. Now this might be a difficult question. I need to know what keeps you motivated, and I don't want to hear, "Oh, my kids and my family." That's an easy one. I
yeah.
What keeps you motivated? What keeps you motivated, and not that.
Oh, I think what keeps me motivated is just wanting to knowing that I can be even better. Like to make myself. This sounds cliche, but to make myself better tomorrow than I was yesterday. You know what I mean? Like just to
Mhm.
get better, better, and better. Like I really like, that another cliche, age is just a number. I really feel like, you know, if like if no one told me if no one said how old are you, if you didn't know your age, how old would you think you are? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like if no one said your age, there's actually a quote. I think Toby Keith actually sang a song about it. It was in the movie The Mule with Clint Eastwood. I guess he and
Hmm.
Clint Eastwood were golfing, and Clint said, if no one told you what age you are, how old would you be in your mind, or something like that. I
Wow.
forgive me because I don't have it exactly, but I thought that was a great quote. And I think that's what keeps me going because, like I said, those little victories where I'm like, if it's on the podcast, I'm like, oh wow, I figured this out, or with YouTube, I figured out like, oh, it's better when those little technical things, and
Yeah.
also, okay, I'll give you one. So on my podcast at the very end, I usually ask like, do you have any words of wisdom, something you've learned along the way?
Mhm.
And I don't know, recently I thought, what I should do is I should go back and listen to what people said and then make that its own YouTube video. You know what I mean? Like now you've got more content. And
Mhm.
it's just those little things like that. That's what keeps me going, where I'm like, oh, that's a good one. I
Yeah.
have a new one that I'm gonna do. And I think it's
Clever
a great
ideas.
I got a clever idea. This is what I'm gonna do. Every week, but I think I actually heard someone else was doing this as well. But I in my own mind I came up with this, but then they have their own version. But still,
Mhm.
you can do it too. We can all do it.
Yeah.
And what that's going to be is every week I'm going to list 5 things that I've learned that week, and I'm going to share it with my audience.
Nice.
You know what I
Nice.
mean? There's 5
No,
things I learned. It could be anything from a definition to how to boil an egg. I don't know, just like telling, like, or
I
like
might do that in a second.
like a life hack or something. I don't know.
No, life hacks are always the key. Now, that final question, if you're doing Kings of Comedy style where you have four of you guys out there and you're one of them, who are the other 3 that you're going to bring with you?
Oh wow, that's a good one, man. I don't know. Well, I would be honored to be on a show with Cat Williams. He's one of my favorite comedians. I've done shows with him a long time ago in the past.
Nice.
He's a gentleman. Every time he sees me, he's like, "Mr. Carter, how are you, Mr. Carter?" I remember the last time I saw him at the Comedy Store. I go, Cat. I'm a big fan, man. I love what you're doing. As do I, sir. As do I. He's just really, I don't know, man. He's just funny. Like when I
Yeah.
heard him on Sirius XM, and I know it's some bits from his special, because I was
Mhm.
telling my friend, it's so funny. He did this thing about steroids. He goes, oh, that's from his first special. But I'm like, it's just so funny, man. So definitely Cat Williams has to be up there.
Yeah.
Um, I got Cat. It was funny as we're talking. People are sending me text messages. I'm trying not to get distracted by it, but so I got Cat Williams. Who else? Oh man, I hate to be put on the spot. Like,
Don't rush it. Don't rush it. We can just go.
oh, I would say living or dead. I'd have to say Robin Williams, man. He was one of my biggest
Oh yeah.
inspirations.
Nice.
And I would love to tour. I would love to perform and be a part of a show with Eddie Murphy, because Eddie
Ooh.
Murphy was when I started, he was the guy that I would listen. He had this album where he had a flower behind his ear, and
Yeah.
I memorized. I think it was even before a special, and I would go to school and I would recite the jokes. And
Yeah.
yeah. By the way, what's interesting
Talk to me.
is to stay in shape. I became really inspired about 4 years ago. I
Mhm.
was walking past a boxing gym, and I love playing chess. And there was a chessboard in there, right? Chessboard in there. And I was like, wow. And so that's what drew me there. And then I saw the
Mhm.
boxing ring. It looked kind of scary because I saw these guys sparring, and I didn't know anything about. I thought if you went there, you had to like spar. They were like, you're next. Yeah, all I ever saw was like the Rocky movies, like just dead
Yeah.
meat, like.
Yeah.
But I joined this boxing gym, and I'm telling you, like ever since like boxing gym became a part of my life. I've been to 4 of them now. Like I've been a member
Mhm.
of 4 ones. I It's something that it keeps you disciplined, because every day, like I'm gonna show you something real quick. Look at this. This is every day of
Bring it
the
to
month.
me.
Like this is April. So I don't know if you see this, but like I write down the date,
Oh
and I write
yes.
down 50. That means I did 50 sit-ups, 50 push-ups. That's how I start my day. And if there's an X, that means I missed a day, but I never let there be 3 days in a row. But
Yeah. Put yourself on punishment.
yes, exactly. Like in the morning, I do some jumping jacks, I do some little twists, I'll do my push-up steps, get them out of the way. And then as the day goes on, I might like hit the heavy bag or ride the bike or do more. But that boxing is really like, if anybody is thinking about like becoming a better person and maybe losing weight, it really does get your mind better, man. And you learn so much in there. But what I was gonna say is there's there was a guy I knew for about a year before I knew this. He used to be very friendly. He'd give advice. I remember he's very humble. I remember one time he was jabbing the bag, and it was so loud. It was like his jab, his lead. It was like smack. I mean, it was just like bam. I mean, that's not even a strong hand. It was his jab. And I remember like, yes. And his name is Brandon. And I go, Brandon, how come I mean, I know he's probably like 20 years younger than me or 25 years younger, but I go, how come your jabs are so like powerful? And he was like, first of all, hold up. And then he was very humble. He had like some answer on why, but and I remember like whatever. There was a couple more things where I thought, man, that guy's so nice, and and then dude, get this. Come to find out, his name is Brandon Lynch. He's Eddie Murphy's nephew. I had no clue.
Wow.
I had no clue. And if you look up Brandon Lynch. He's Eddie Murphy's nephew. He's coached by his father, which is Eddie Murphy's brother. That's I had crazy. No idea. That was a surprise because when you're just like cool to somebody just because they're cool.
Yeah.
It was no ulterior motives. It was no like, I want to be nice to that guy because that's Eddie Murphy's. It was literally like
just sprinkle that in the conversation.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But anyways, I don't know why I got sidetracked. I just thought about boxing.
No. I needed to hear that. You're gonna make me go and punch a hole in my wall, and then we'll fix that later. But now we always got to have that moment where we wrap it up, where we get to talk our shit. So I need you to talk your shit right here. Basically, here is where you plug them up. If you've got sponsors, if you've got shout outs, if you've got merch, shows coming up, website, talk your shit. I'll just sit back and have a beverage.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, I want to thank you guys for listening to the whole show. I'm on my podcast is called Pocket Party. It's available everywhere. My YouTube channel, Darren Carter, and I do have 4 albums, and you could buy them or you could stream them. They're all out there. All my albums are out there. Podcast, Pocket Party, and like I said, YouTube. Just do me a favor, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Say I heard you on the Velvet Vibez podcast, and that'll be a good thing. And by the way, after we get done recording, I'm gonna tell you 2 little hot tips, or at least 1 little hot tip. I could say it on the air, but I could wait afterwards. It's a little podcasting tip that I just got knowledge on, and I'm gonna tell you.
If it's not that secret and you feel like you want to spew it out there, I'm giving you the open door to do it. But if it's some undercover secret, and it's up to you, but go for it.
It's basically, I'll tell you off the show, but it'll tell you look where you are ranked in the world of podcasting. That's what it is. And it's a new directory that I just found out about.
Oh, well, yes, it looks like our life is going to change. I like
that. That's right. But I'll tell you what, if anybody's that interested, message Velvet Vibez or message me, and we'll just tell you. But I just don't, you know what I mean? Like, we'll keep we'll make people work for it a little bit if they really want to know. But
there you go. Amen.
It's going to help you though. It's going to help you.
Yeah. We're going to utilize it too. But yeah, if you have any more, any shows, any websites or anything, I don't want to cut you off. I'm talking your shit.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah. DarrenCarter.com is the website. I don't think it's funny. I don't think I put the dates on, but I got shows coming up. I'm going to be in the Bay Area. I'll be in Alameda. I'll be in Bakersfield. What else am I doing? I'm doing a fundraiser for the whatever. I'm out there, but mainly go to the YouTube, listen, check out the podcast, Instagram, official Darren Carter. And yes, I am on TikTok.
Indeed.
I'm on Cameo too. If you guys like Cameo, I do those like the personalized video shout outs.
Oh yeah.
Those are birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. I love it.
Amen. Well, this man.
Oh, let me do some Snoop Dogg for you guys. Here we go. Snoop Dogg.
Oh yeah, they're ready for it.
Well, yeah, what's cracking? It's the Digo Double G, the big Snoop Dogg. Ooh, wait.
No, you just got us inspired with that one. all I want to tell you guys, yeah, as I always do, this guy just dropped some gospel. Shout out to the whole Velvet Vibes podcast. Join the Velvet Vibez podcast on Facebook. Join that group if you want to come in there and cuss us out. Tell us that we're sons of bitches. Tell us that we're amazing. If you want to send me some love mail, 100%velvet at gmail.com. If you want to send me some hate mail, 100%velvet at gmail.com. Do not hesitate to hit me on Instagram. It's mighty funny you say that. Velvet Vibes with a Z podcast, all one word, no funny shit, no underscores. Velvet Vibes podcast. Hit me on IG. Go ahead and follow me. Go ahead and hear about the great Darren Carter. Have yourself a little beverage. Sit back, twerk, smoke something, drink something. Do what you must. But listen to Velvet Vibes podcast. With that being said, I'm going to press a button you may have heard of. It's called End. Indeed, we's out this biatch.